Hey everybody, Tekking101 here. As you can tell from the black and white overlay, this is going to be a serious moment on my show. Very rare, I'm aware of that. But today is September 11th. It is the anniversary, the 11th anniversary of the Twin Towers World Trade Center terrorist bombings. If you are an American, you know, this is something that's probably a big deal to you. If you're not an American, maybe not so much, but I am. I'm actually living in Pennsylvania. I actually live fairly close to where Flight 93 crashed, so it's something that I just wanted to express my condolences to everybody. If you have family members that were in the terrorist attacks, and I just wanted to take a brief moment to mention that. So, and it's kind of ironic because in this chapter is filled with fire and explosions. So, you know, how I'm going to tap dance around that, I have no idea. Just go to the intro. Hey everybody, Tekking101 here to review Bleach chapter number 507 entitled The Fire 3. The Fire. You know, that actually sounds like a, you know how there's like restaurants and clubs that have really simplistic names, just like one-word names and stuff? I could totally imagine like Yamamoto opening a steakhouse and it would just be called The Fire. Yeah, hi, I'd like to order the porterhouse. Okay, sir, and how would you like that prepared? Well done. Very good, sir. I want it rare. I want it rare. Just make it rare. Make it bloody as a corpse in a Saw film, okay? Yeah, don't do that. That'd be kind of, I mean, I eat there. Place called The Fire. That'd be pretty hip. People still say hip. I don't know. Anyway, moving on with the chapter, we open up with the blonde Stern Ritter / Stern Ritter leader, whatever I'm calling him. We still don't know his name. Anyway, he's remarking about how Yamamoto's Bankai just changed from massive explosions that burn everything into just a tiny little short sword, well, long sword, I suppose, that's just like smoldering a little bit. And a lot of people were questioning that. They were questioning if this is his Bankai full form or if this is just like a transformation process, like it was still in the middle of transforming. The answer to that is yes and no. We'll get to that later, but you'll see. But anyway, the interesting thing here is that the Stern Ritter leader remarks like, oh, he makes fun of it pretty much. Like, oh, that's just that little tiny scorched blade. That's all that's left after the Bankai. And this remarks it is so similar to how when Ichigo first released his Bankai back against Byakuya, because Ichigo's Bankai converted his sword down into this like regular long sword that didn't seem to have any kind of you know, interesting abilities. And Byakuya stated, he's like, that's your Bankai. It looks just like a normal sealed sword. And but that made sense though, because Ichigo was kind of a, you know, he wasn't revered as like a, you know, big strong Shinigami. He was just a substitute with borrowed powers, well, to them got borrowed powers. That wasn't really necessarily a huge threat up until that point. So it makes sense why Byakuya would consider his Bankai to be inferior. But in this case, however, the Stern Ritter leader knows this is Yamamoto. I mean, he can make fun of the Soul Society, he can make fun of the Shinigami being weak as much as they want. This is the flipping head captain. When he goes Bankai, I don't even care what it looks like. I don't care if it turns his sword into a little pen knife. You run crying with your head between your legs and you kiss your ass goodbye, Buster, because it's over after that moment. And so then we get a little bit of exposition from Juha's part where he explains exactly what his Bankai does. And from what he recalls is when apparently Yamamoto used this same Bankai to fight Juha 1,000 years ago, he states that the sword compresses all the fire from the Shikai into that one sword. So last chapter I was essentially right. It was Ichigo kind of type like compressing kind of Bankai, you know, more for precision. And that's what his Bankai does. So whatever it cuts gets erupted into flames right away. Or at least that's what Juha states it did 1,000 years ago. However, Yamamoto restates that maybe it's not the same sword he used 1,000 years ago against his fight against Juha. So then we cut over to another part of the Seirete where we see Ukitake, who's thinking about how his throat is a little dry. Wow, that's a real pressing matter. You want a juice box or something? So then we cut over to Choraku, who is remarking that his lip has cracked a little bit. Dude! Go buy some Blistex or something. I don't know. I would be more concerned about the giant hole in your eye. But whatever. I know what they're doing. They're remarking about the fact that ever since Yamamoto activated his Bankai, all the water in the Seirete, all the moisture is now slowly disappearing, which is resulting in, you know, cracked lips, dry skin, and everything. But It just seems out of place in this chapter. It's like they could have, you know, if Kubo wanted to show the reader that the water is disappearing in the Soul Society, there has to be a bunch of more ways he could have done it than just have the main characters, which are supposed to be in the middle of fights right now, remark about it. And I can kind of understand those scenes a little bit because they're just, you know, like remarks, like Uketaki's thinking to it, Choroku's just remarking on it in battle. But the next page is even more awkward. It has Asane and Unohana, and Unohana is seeing that a vase of water has evaporated, and Asane is complaining about dry skin, and Unohana responds by, "Oh, Asane, you said something girly for once." There's a war going on outside! This is what you're doing right now? You're the head of the freaking medical corps. You should be, you know, tending to the wounded or something right now? No? You're just having basically a little tea party? Whatever. Unohana does have a little thought that Yamamoto should finish the fight as soon as possible before it causes serious damage to the Soul Society. So then we cut over to Toshiro's fight against the Wolverine Quincy, who I guess at some point during the fight Toshiro had to encase him in ice, but this turned out to be like the worst possible time to encase him in ice because now all of it's melting, and he even mentions that all the water in Seirete is disappearing right now. You know, I wouldn't count yourself out just now, Toshiro. If you're lucky, maybe, just if you're lucky, the Quincy's will be so caught up by the fact that they now have dry skin that they'll run off to Walmart to buy some moisturizer. I mean, give them some credit. I mean, they might be homicidal maniacs, Nazis, and bent on world domination pretty much, purging the entire Seirete, but they care about their personal health as much as the next guy. Pretty sure. So we get the title page, then we cut back over to the fight against Juha and Yamamoto. Yamamoto does manage to cut Juha's cloak a little bit, but nothing happens to it, causing Juha to wonder if this is the same Bankai he fought against 1,000 years ago, if it changed at all. And then Juha says something that I'm a little hesitant to believe as considering as fact. He says that Yamamoto's power is fire. That's what his sword is, and therefore his Shikai and Bankai both have to be fire-related. There is no Zanpakuto that has different powers for Shikai and Bankai. And, you know, that's true with a lot of swords. That's true with Hitsugaya, but it's just hard. It's hard for me to kind of connect it when I look at like Soifon's sword, where we have her Shikai is a instrument of speed and agility, 2 hits death, and then we have her Bankai, which is a giant fuck-off missile. It's probably the two most polar opposite things you can imagine, and even Soifon commented on that a few times, how they're both two polar opposite sword abilities. So, you know, at that moment I'm a little bit hesitant, but, you know, I'm just going to state it as fact right now, because for Yamamoto anyway, it does apply to him. So Yamamoto then strikes the ground with his sword, causing a massive explosion, and this causes Juha to finally realize that it's actually the edge of the sword which causes the explosion. Alright, I get it. So basically, there doesn't have to be any kind of force or inertia behind the sword. Anything that touches the blade itself explodes, essentially. Oh, shit. Okay, that was my bad. Okay, so anyway, Yamamoto continues the fight, and he states that nothing, not even the Blute Vein, will be able to block his blade's attack now. Juha's rebuttal to this is that his blade is actually pretty boring, because all he has to do now is avoid touching his sword. He goes to attack it, but ends up getting his blade cut in half as Yamamoto parries it. You know, it's actually kind of funny. We finally get to see Juha fight, and yet we actually haven't seen him fight. Like, we haven't seen him use any kind of special ability or anything. I mean, we saw him draw his sword, which I thought was a full bring last chapter because he, pulled it out of nowhere. But, we don't actually get to see him use it, what his sword can do, and Yamamoto just cut it in half. So, you know, maybe if it's a Reishi weapon, he can just reform it. But, it's just humorous that we finally get to see the leader of this, the Von Reich fight, and we never see actually what he can do. After he cuts Juha's sword in half, Yamamoto states he's too confident, and he has to pay attention to what he said. If there's a Zanka no Tachi East, it would hazard a guess then there's a Zanka no Tachi West as well. You know, maybe this is implying there's 4 abilities, but then again, you also have to go with, you know, East meaning, you know, Japanese and Asian cultures, Western meaning other cultures. Maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe there won't be an East or South, a North and a South, but, you know, at least East and West, you know, that's symmetrical right there. And Yamamoto states he's finally going to show him the other ability of his Bankai, Zanko no Tachi West. Okay, so it's at this scene of the chapter that I really wanted to play a song over this scene when Yamamoto transforming into like his awesome Bankai second form. But it's a copyrighted song and I don't have the rights to use it, and I don't want this video to get taken down. So guess we're doing Tekking101 karaoke again. I am the god of hell's fire, and I bring you fire. Dun 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 dun. I'll take you to burn. Dun dun dun. Fire. Dun dun dun. I'll give you to learn. Dun dun dun. Okay, you know what? Screw it. Zanka no Tachi West. Zanjutsu Gokai, the prison uniform of the remaining sun, which, for lack of a better term, basically turns him into the Hephaestus, the god of fire himself. He is like clad in like fire armor. It looks like his beard has even become to ignite, like he's like a fire beard now. He just looks so epic in this form. His pupils disappear. He just has that stern look on his face. He's the god of fire, essentially. So final scene of the chapter, Yamamoto states to Juha that the flame of this current form of his Bankai is at 15 million degrees Fahrenheit, and it's as if his body and sword are clad in the sun's flames. Okay, so that's the end of the chapter. Oh, why don't I just move this? Anyway, thing I have to mention here is the exact temperature of the blade itself. In this translation, the Manga Panda version, it says 1,500,000. In the Manga Stream version, it said 15 million. So, I don't know. Does anyone out there know the actual temperature of the sun at all? Anybody? Mr. Tekking, I know, pick me! Yeah, okay, smart Tekking, go ahead. Yes! The surface of the sun is approximately 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 5,500 degrees Celsius. However, there are some parts of it that are actually lower than that because they're darker. Those can range anywhere from about 6,000 to 6,700 degrees Fahrenheit. However, the sun is hottest at its center, ranging at approximately 27 million degrees Fahrenheit and 15 million degrees Fahrenheit. So in this chapter, Yamamoto's statement is actually true, although having a 15,000 degree Fahrenheit flame in the Seirete could result in some major property damage, as in everything would pretty much get burned to cinders in a matter of seconds. But, it is fiction, so we have to deal with that. Way to go, smart Tekking. You get an A for the day. Okay, anyway, so that's the end of the chapter right there. A lot of people from the last chapter, anyway, they remarked that why doesn't, because Yamamoto went Bankai, how he's forgetting the Quincy's can steal Bankai. And I wasn't really concerned over this because, kind of like the same thing with Ichigo's, I mean, we still are kind of, oblivious to what exactly causes Ichigo's Bankai to be resisting to the medallions. But you have to figure, the Quincy medallions, they absorb Bankai, but there has to be some kind of limit here, right? I mean, they just can't absorb, whatever, like an unlimited storage facility. There has to be some kind of limit to what they can take in. Yamamoto's Bankai, for instance, is simply the strongest in terms of fire-type Zanpakuto, probably the strongest Bankai in the Seirete, especially when it goes into, like, Flame God mode. So, really, there's no, storing it in a medallion, I mean, if that was possible, if that was any at all possible, I'm pretty sure that Juha or the blonde-haired Quincy Sternritter would have done it right away, and they didn't even mention it in this chapter. So I'm pretty sure if they could steal his Bankai, they would have. Kind of the same thing with Aizen, though. Like, Aizen had the ability to steal Yamamoto's Bankai, but he waited to do it until, like, almost the very end of the fight in Karakura Town. He didn't use it when he was imprisoned in the flame. He didn't use it, all that time. Like, why didn't he just bring Wanderweiss with him? But, regardless of that, next chapter, I'm really thinking we're going to cut back to Hueco Mundo now. I'm pretty sure this is how Kubo's going to play with us, because, we got, Yamamoto in Flame God mode. I'm pretty sure we're going to cut back over to Hueco Mundo finally, like 8 chapters after the fact, finally find out who it is. Two most main subjects I'm hearing are Grimmjow, for one, or Hiyori. I'm going to lean toward Grimmjow. I have been for the past, holy crap, the past 2-3 months since we've been in the dark about this. But anyway, so, that's the chapter. In terms of, if nothing else I found out really interesting, though, is why he didn't use the Bankai in Karakura Town, because now we finally see, the extra effects of his Bankai when it absorbs all the moisture in the air, and Yunohana even stated that if his Bankai is left active for far too long, it could do, irreversible damage. It could probably start to, crumble the buildings, start killing people, drying them out, or whatever. I mean, I'm assuming, it takes the humidity out of, sources like water in the vases first, first, and then it starts working on the humidity in the body, maybe. The moisture in the body. So if nothing else, that explains why he didn't use his Bankai like right away in Karakura Town. He did just, massive damage, I suppose. So anyway, yeah, that's my chapter review right there. Thanks guys for watching. Tekking101 signing out.